So what gives you kick? The numbers or the way the numbers are seen?
Well, neither the numbers nor the way the numbers are seen gives me the thrill.
What happens after listing? What is the subsequent years for the founders?
No, a lot of SMEs go on to become better enterprises over time. If you see the number of SMEs that have gone on to the main board, we are talking about 100 plus SMEs which have gone on to the main board, which means they have grown quite well.
What is the pebble in the shoe today for an exchange professional at your end which has resources at its bay? What is pebble in the shoe for Sriram?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of power that social media wields these days. And sometimes, the incorrect narrative spreads very easily. And one has to work very, very hard to correct it out.
Hi, welcome back to Enigma India. And the best part about this is its season 2 finale episode. And what could be the better way to end Enigma India, a series which is a tribute to Indian markets, the markets that gave us, at least me, my identity, my experience, and something that I have done all my life, I think flawlessly, is to put India on the global map. When it's about Indian markets, when it's about opportunities, when it's about rules, regulations, governance, everything that is required to know when you invest here or when you invest in the pool of capital which is waiting to be deployed. Either ways, it's best to go to the source and get your questions answered. This is the first time that there is a business head which is in our studio, a business head of globally recognized, top-ranked stock exchanges in the world. The business head that has walked in today is not an exception. It is the requirement of this topic, which is about retrospective and prospective of India's buzzing SME sector. I am today sitting with him discussing what future holds for SME listing space. Sriram, welcome to the show.
Thank
Namaste.
you. Thank you. Namaste.
Awesome. How are you feeling?
Oh, very, very good. Very good.
You are the most relaxed person I have seen in the studio.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Where you get this, patience, the cool thing?
I don't know. I think I'm just being the usual normal self that I am.
This is the discussion with Sriram to find out how is business development done at the exchange and how is it feels to leading such a big business pie. So what gives you kick? The numbers or the way the numbers are seen?
Well, neither the numbers nor the way the numbers are seen gives me the thrill. If I have to be very honest, I think the business development role that I am doing here is not a normal business development role. We are trying to, stick to our existential objective, the reason why NSE was set up, for example, and which is to help people raise capital. So we set up a platform where people could come and raise capital. So we have the entrepreneurs who are ready at one point in time. And obviously the investors had to do their bit in terms of supporting these entrepreneurs. And of course they did. But the key was, will we be able to build a very strong trust quotient? And will we be able to sustain it? And that's where the role is not just another business development role, but a role which is about taking this responsibility forward, building the organization further to the next level, and helping the country, the ecosystem, the capital markets, all in a single, unselfish method where we're not looking at numbers and prosperity for the organization alone, but we're looking at the nation as a whole, the ecosystem as a whole. So it's a very different role compared to what I have done ever before in my career.
It's a role that is not just growing the organization vertically, but as well as the ecosystem or the nation as a whole as well. Imagine where would you get this kind of a combination in a role? Utterly satisfying, if I may say
Absolutely, so. Absolutely.
Wow.
There are no words to describe how glad we are when we see a new company getting listed on the platform, whether it's a main board company or an SME. It's equally thrilling to listen to their story, how they came through the hardships and how thrilled they are to be on the NSE platform. So it's an amazing situation each time I go to a listing ceremony.
I've heard that there are times when at listing ceremonies, families are in tears. There are a lot of goosebump moments, and
Oh, yes.
a lot of families share these emotions with you.
Oh yes, why only families? Even we
Yeah.
go through the thrills
Same.
and the emotions, right? So of course, some of us, we've been through these situations a number of times. So we don't really, openly come out as emotional, but of course we go through that within our minds to think about, when you think about the fact that someone has worked so hard to come here today, and that toil is for maybe 20, 30, 40 years in some cases. So it's quite mind-boggling, the journey and the struggle, but at the same time it's very inspiring and motivating.
Absolutely, you touch the right emotion and the right chords, because each listing is like a Indian mythological story of triumph over difficult times, and rags to riches story, story of transformation, story of the whole it's just not the one person who is coming out of poverty movement. It is about the whole society looking up to that one person who has breaken the barriers. So there's a lot going on when an SME gets listed, and that's the real emotion of India, I believe, that you are bringing out. um, so as I said, each time there is a new company that's get listed, gets access to capital, and takes the journey forward. um, it is said that it's not the end, it's where it all starts. What happens after listing? What is the subsequent years for the founders? Enormous, because of the regulations, governance and checks and balances they have to run. What is the next 3 years journey, if not all of this?
No, a lot of SMEs go on to become better enterprises over time. And our selection process is so strict that we don't let any and every SME come onto the platform. So given the tough selection criteria and the grinding that they go through at the time of application screening, it's very difficult for some of these businesses to totally fail. So in our experience, most of the SMEs on the NSE platform have done reasonably well. I'm just speaking generally.
Sure.
And if you see the number of SMEs that have gone on to the main board, we are talking about 100 plus SMEs which have gone on to the main board, which means they have grown quite well. Right. So considering that we have about 530 odd SMEs on our platform as on date, and 100 plus have gone on to the main board, it's not a bad ratio. 20% of them have gone on to become really good. Wow. which is a big percentage, I think. Wow. Therefore, there's every reason for us to encourage good quality SMEs and help the country and the economy grow.
As we see, and I had spoken to Harish in one of his, when we were having a conversation, and he mentioned that, as well as echoed by the Chief Regulatory Officer at your end, it's the fundamentals that we look for. And this fundamental starts right at the top, the due diligence of founder and the rest of the things. While I'm not going to ask you about the regulations and in that area, but my question would be, every founder comes with an aspiration, and there is always a number in mind, and there is this euphoria about valuation. How do you manage that expectations with founders, or how do you manage expectations of your intermediaries?
Well, there are some inherent checks and balances in the framework. For example, for SMEs, there is a merchant banker concept which is slightly different from what we have for the main board. Out here, the merchant banker can only file for the SME IPO, number one. Number two, the merchant banker has to do a due diligence on the SME and then file a due diligence certificate with the exchange. Without this, the process doesn't even move ahead. So the merchant banker already has done a reasonable amount of work in terms of sizing and scoping the possibility and the prospects, and is already in a good position to give us a reasonable description of what he or she thinks the valuation could be in terms of reasonableness. And thereafter, we have our own framework which further throws many questions at the applicant, and we go through the answers in great detail and with that sense of responsibility, right? So here we are trying to balance two things. On the one hand, we have to encourage SMEs because SMEs are struggling without bank finance, bank credit. Banks don't have the appetite, the risk appetite to lend to such small entities. And if you look at the non-bank finance companies, they don't have a problem lending, but the rate of interest that they will come out with will be so huge that the business case gets destroyed most of the time. So this is why we need to support SMEs. That's the underlying objective on the one hand. On the other hand, we don't want fake SME IPOs coming in and fooling the investors with some business cases that are outlandish or with valuation expectations which are over the top. So it's a question of balancing these two, letting the merchant banker play his critical role, relying on the ecosystem inputs, relying on the strength of our regulatory due diligence. Our regulatory team does a wonderful job in eliminating many of the applicants. And in the last 1 year, I think about 50-60 applicants have withdrawn from the process after the questions and after the grind that they went through. So this is the way the process works. People understand that they're not making the cut, and many times they go back. They go back to the drawing board possibility to test a different business idea or to test a different business case. And when they have something tangible that they think will pass the NSE muster, that's when they come back.
Perfect. Speaking of going back to the drawing board, if someone is literally at the drawing board stage, there are a lot of emphasis on women entrepreneurs and all, and most of us are on the drawing board space. At that stage, what would you recommend an aspiring woman entrepreneur or entrepreneur? Let's keep it woman entrepreneur, no apologies. Okay, till the time we have no distinction between entrepreneurs. But speaking seriously on women entrepreneurs who are on their path and they are enamored or they are has a vision because they have seen success stories out there and they want to pick up a pie for themselves. At what stage they should approach NSE, because you have awareness workshops, as I learned from you. I think you are doing massive numbers of workshops, awareness sessions. What is the stage when an SME prospect should reach the exchange? Knowing that there's a merchant banker to get access to, but what would be your thought process for what's the path they have in front of?
No, we are as an exchange are a very friendly and approachable bunch of people. And the culture we have here is an open culture where anybody can be approached, honestly. So we try our bit to reach out, to do many programs where we address women entrepreneurs in particular if we can. We also have signed memorandum of understanding with many state governments. And they hold some programs where we are speakers and we explain the entire process. And we do tell them sometimes to request to hold programs especially for women entrepreneurs, because we want to see more of them coming onto the platform as well. And a good time to approach the exchange would be when somebody has a good business idea, because it's possible that the business idea doesn't require too much money to start with, so they can probably with their own resources and with the resources from friends and relatives, they can get going with that idea and see if that really works. Maybe a year, 2 years down the line, they get a good sense of whether that concept really works. And along the way, they also learn a number of things. And we're always there to, give them any friendly advice or guidance that they may require. We have this concept of mentorship. Our people are available in 50 places across the country. And therefore, we can help with whatever help they want during this phase. And then, if they're actually convinced that, yes, this idea works, and they require more money to take it to the next level, for example, that's when they should be serious and should get in touch with a merchant banker or with the exchange.
You heard it from the source. India's SME sector is on the mark today. But what is also important that you heard is, when do you approach exchange? When do you start thinking about listing? I think it starts with your idea, and that's where the first homework starts. If you have an idea and you have used that idea or created a product and figured out a product market fit, as we say, you have some numbers to speak how your product is doing. Does it require any further new markets or things like that? But basically, it starts with your idea. Make a prototype, see how it works, and then, of course, exchanges are here. There's a tons of information on the website. There are interviews these leaders have left behind. There are sessions, awareness sessions in thousands of number every month to increase the awareness of the market participants as well as investors. And let's not forget the founders with vision. And yet it starts with your idea. The whole essence, Sriram, of SME listing space or listing space as a whole it's about addressing a gap of funding. How big is the gap and how much are we going to cover it up?
I don't think there's any gap as such. There's enough liquidity in the market. And on the contrary, the concern from the regulatory side seems to be that there's too much liquidity chasing too few issuances, which is why the inflationary tendency is showing up in terms of the markets, peaking all the time. So it's a bit of an arguable, debatable point. But I think, there's always money and support for a good issuance. So entrepreneurs need not worry about funding gap, etc. I think there's always money for a good idea.
This is totally contrary to what I've heard, and the way you've said it, I think it makes so much sense. So guys, there is no funding gap. There are resources, there are opportunities. You just need to be on the right side of regulations.
Look at the oversubscription.
Oversubscription, let's not forget.
Look at the extent of the oversubscription. That tells you something.
That was quite a resourceful answer. What kind of founders? You would also have your wish list of founders or SMEs, businesses that would list on NSE.
No, we don't have any such wish list. We are here to serve the society, and serving the society means we have to be, impartial, and we have to stick to our core principles, which we try to do. So the core principles demand that we look at everybody as an equal opportunity provider, which we want to be, and as a platform, we have to be completely agnostic. And anybody who comes here and is able to, on merit, tick all the boxes, deserves a place under the sun. So it's not about the size or the fire in the belly or the sparkle in the eyes or anything of that sort. It's about the merits of the case. And if somebody has the merits, then there is place for him or her.
Right. This also brings me to a question about the frenzy of valuation that goes. How you look at it, and what is your advice to SMEs and service providers, if you would like to take that question?
Well, I think it's a bit of a concern. Money doubling in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, etc., is not what we want to see. So clearly, that's something that we don't want to see, and we are already taking measures. We have announced a ceiling of 90%, a cap of 90% on listing day gains, and we'll continue to do many more things if we have to arrest that slide. But we want to see genuine investors coming onto the SME platform as well, the NSE emerge, and stay true to the label, which is that they are longer term oriented investors, and not those who are out there to make a gain in 3 weeks. So investors, if they can stick to the label, if they can be true to their label and behave like investors, well, that's what we want to see more of.
With Sriram, you can't mince word. So you heard it right from the source. My question to you is, NSE has gone through a fantastic transformation. We all as market participants are witness to your exchange prosperity and, as I said, transformation, and of course the leadership at the top. Ashish has been a flag bearer, and he has been the thought leader who has inspired many hundreds of us. You are heading a business, and I have met your team. Highly enterprising, go-getters, out there to support. They always enrich, give extra, information. Is it an easy job?
Of course, it is very easy for me because I have to just sit and talk to you.
Okay, so
with such a fantastic team, I don't have to do much heavy lifting, as you can imagine. So, well, it's important to have a great team, and that's what we have tried to ensure. And half the battle is won if you have a good bunch of people around you, and those guys who are very, very sincere, very, very hardworking, and do the stuff, in line with the stated rules and expectations. So I think that's very, very important for every organization for that.
There's also a little interest to know what would be the CBO's target look like? What does the target dashboard of a CBO looks like?
Well, like I said, this is a role which is not measured in targets. But I'll tell you how I look at this. We talk about India becoming a bigger country, bigger economy. Today, the GDP is probably around $4 trillion. And many people are saying that it should be 10 trillion by 2033, 2035, whatever that landmark is, the timeline is. If we have to become a 10 trillion economy, and considering that the market cap of NSE listed companies is about 120, 130, maybe currently 140% of the GDP, So if you just extrapolate this, we should be around 11 trillion or 12 trillion by 2035, let's say, for example. How are we going to get to 11 or 12 trillion market cap as an exchange in these 10, 11 years? You know, it can't be that the companies on the platform today miraculously just become that much more valuable. That I see very hard in terms of possibility to become reality. But what can happen is newer companies come onto the platform and they become much more valuable than maybe the top 500 companies of today. You know, we have seen unicorns breaking barriers in the past. We have 100 plus unicorns. Many of them are not listed, and hopefully that can be one way in which we can see an increase in the market cap. But then that alone is not going to be sufficient. You're going to need many more companies to come onto the platform. There are about 20 lakh SMEs in India today, and obviously, you know, a lot of these SMEs need growth capital. It's not possible to have 20 lakh companies listed on the platform. I don't see that happening either. But if you see the last 3 decades, we have seen about 3,000 companies get listed on the platform. That's where we are roughly. And if you ask me after 10 years, are we going to be 3,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 or 15,000? It's anybody's guess. But my guess is that it will be a bigger number in the next 10 years than what we have seen getting listed in the last 30 years.
Wow.
So that much is for sure. So I think, therefore, you're going to see a number of companies come onto the platform. In the last financial year, you know, the SEBI chairperson recently made a comment that almost every trading session there was a new company listed, and that's been the trend.
Wow.
And possibly going forward, we'll see more and more younger and smaller companies come to the platform. And with increasing knowledge and awareness, this is going to become a movement.
Right.
So I see my role as a role that is going to enable this whole thing manifest itself. It's a dream that we are working on. We want this country to be a vibrant country with unlimited possibilities, and you know, with prosperity all around. So that's what the NSE is here to deliver.
One of the things that I've always observed, it's not the mountains that are difficult to climb, it's the pebble in the shoe. What is the pebble in the shoe today for a professional, an exchange professional at your end, which has resources at its bay? What is pebble in the shoe for Sriram?
I think, you know, there's a lot of power that social media wields these days, and sometimes, you know, the incorrect narrative spreads very easily, and one has to work very hard to correct it out. So a lot of people get carried away by incorrect news and propaganda, and I think that's something that all of us have a responsibility to take care of in terms of, you know, ensuring that the correct message is always conveyed. So as an exchange, we want to be extremely clear that, you know, we are trying our best every single day, and, you know, making sure that, you know, the dabba trading or, you know, illegal products or, you know, channels or guaranteed returns or any of these, you know, things that we keep hearing about, we immediately, you know, publicize it. We warn investors to take care. Likewise, we've recently seen fake videos, you know, based on our MD and CEO, for example, inviting people to chat groups and WhatsApp and so on. It's not real. These are all, you know, completely imaginary and fake, and people need to take care of themselves and always believe the right guidance which comes from the exchange, right? So I think all of us have a collective responsibility to make sure that scams and accidents don't happen on the way, because that's how the trust quotient gets disturbed. And, you know, as an economy and as a country in a capital markets, you know, space, we are the envy of the world. And given the amount of digitalization we have seen in the last 10 years or so, really the envy of the world. People want to, you know, people are dying to become like us. And therefore, there are a number of people who want to derail us. And we have a collective responsibility to ensure that we don't derail, but on the contrary, we make this ecosystem a much more stronger and you know, sounder capital markets ecosystem, which is fully transparent and reliable in the overall scheme of things.
Wow, no, this is so well said. In fact, एक पुरानी मूवी का डायलॉग याद आ गया, सदियों सरहद दुश्मन दौरे जहां हमारा, कुछ तो बात है कि हस्ती मिट्टी नहीं हमारी. मतलब there is so much in favor of India and so much against. But kuch to baat hai, this resilience of this Indian markets is always the motivator. We would like to also talk about something very interesting that came to my attention. A social stock exchange has been brought up last year, if I may say so.
Yeah.
And since then, you have 49 such NGOs listing. This is one of the most enterprising, kinesthetic, or compassionate stand by an exchange for making fundraise for compassionate projects and supporting NGOs and such programs. How do you see that vision coming out? वहाँ पे तो investors को तो gain भी नहीं है.
No, I think it's the vision of the regulators more than the vision of NSE on this one. The regulators, as well as the ministry, the government, the policymakers. I think the finance minister was the one who made this announcement in the first place. So full credit to her, and also full credit to SEBI for seeing this through. And as an exchange, we are very happy to contribute to the social fabric to the building of the social fabric of the country. Right. The art of giving is something that everybody needs to learn if they haven't learned already. And anybody who wants to, give, but with the comfort and assurance that whatever they're giving is being utilized properly, they would love to come to the social stock exchange segment, because out here we have certain checks and balances, we have audits, we have quality assurance and so on, which makes it very more satisfactory for somebody who wants to make sure that the money really went to the intended beneficiary. Right. So that's the big reason why the social stock exchange will work and will be a huge success. And we are now being watched and admired by many other countries around us. Malaysia, for example, sent a delegation,
right,
and they are on the same path as well. And I think we are the first country in the world where we have demonstrated that this too can work. So wow, very happy to be a part of this phase as well.
Awesome. You heard it right. NSE is a house to a very special social enterprise exchange as well, a platform that helps social enterprises to raise funds from investors that believe in art of giving. A very structured, very exchange-driven way of fundraising. And if you want to know more, please do check out the website of NSE that covers up these social enterprise exchanges, and see the list of NGOs and enterprises coming on board, so that your gesture of giving for larger cause is streamlined and it's on exchange. That's a fantastic insight to leave. Sriram, your message to your listeners which are listening, and especially women entrepreneurs, what to expect from NSE in the next 3 years?
Well, more than what we can expect from the NSE would like to ask, entrepreneurs, what can we expect from you? Because we are here, we are up and ready for business. Tell us what you want. We are here to deliver what you want. And if you want any improvements, if you have any feedback for us, we are all ears and ready to receive that feedback and work on it. Our team is willing to help you in every possible way, facilitating your arrival on our platform. And we are also working with state governments, the central government, and every other machinery possible to do everything that we can to take the market cap and the GDP of the country to greater heights. So, we are open.
Awesome. Fantastic. I think that's the takeoff moment I have been always talking about, that will come with the end of the Enigma Season 2 finale episode. It couldn't have been better than this, speaking directly to the source, understanding what SME listing space, what opportunity it holds for the one standing in the queue, and looking at the gong, that one day it will be our story getting listed, and it's just not the company. Sriram, thank you for joining this conversation. First of its kind, we are blending a lot of interesting part of what we got introduced at NSE. Thank you for coming on board and just honoring us with your interview.
No, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me on your episode.
What numbers you have in mind for women entrepreneurs coming on SME platform?
Honestly, I don't have any numbers right now, but I agree with you. The number of women coming for SME IPOs, that's less. I may crib about the pressure, I may crib about work and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, I like doing it.
Wonderful. Please continue doing it, because इससे तो industry को help हो रही है.